Hello, party people. Welcome back to another NRW review video. That's right. It's another review video for all our fans in internet land, and I'm your host, the one with the most, Mr. David Estacado, and I'm here with my buddy from another nutty from my left-hand side, the one and only. Please introduce yourself, sir.
What's going on, everybody? Here, I'm Rob, the movie guy, and thank you very much for joining us here today, because today we unfortunately have to review this here from you guys because we are just going to give it to it, get straight into it here, because without further ado, let's first roll the trailer real quick, and then we'll start this shit fest here. Here's the trailer here for Artemis Fowl.
We want to know everything about the man you work for.
The man? Oh no. This isn't about the father. This is about the son, Artemis Fowl.
You've grown strong, son. And smarter than I ever imagined.
Then take me with you.
You're all I have now, Artie. There's just one very important thing I have to do.
Authorities launched a worldwide manhunt for the famous collector. He is suspected to have been behind some of the biggest robberies ever.
Dad. Hello?
Your family has taken something of great value from us. Return it to me or I will destroy everything you love.
You weren't supposed to see this yet. Your father is in a complicated profession. For years, he has protected powerful secrets that have kept mankind safe from the dangers of another world. It's time to face your destiny.
Now look around, this is what they call greatness.
But we are not alone in this.
Mulch Diggum's just a talented giant dwarf.
And I'm Holly Short, your ally on the other side. It's real. All right. Save my father. Save the world.
Whole team ready, tell them we on deck.
Scared, Artemis?
I prefer scared to dead.
An army is coming.
You think you can beat us?
We'll see.
Who do you think you are?
I'm the next criminal mastermind.
Now look around, this is what they call greatness.
I didn't read much on trolls. Anything I should look out for?
The teeth.
They eat people. Good to know.
And there it is. It looked pretty on paper, I guess. And the trailer, there were some parts in the trailer that weren't even in the movie. I noticed that.
Same here.
And they probably would have done a little bit more if they had it in the movie, maybe. Man, this movie had a lot going for it, and it just dropped the ball. I mean,
That's being polite about the whole situation there. They pretty much took a dump on it, and then they decided to add a bunch of other nonsense that just has nothing to do, from what I understand, with the story at all. But I mean, you're more familiar with the plot. I mean, than I was here. I didn't even know it was based on a book series here until shortly before I saw the film.
Yeah, it was based on a kid's book. Right around the time, it's received a lot high acclamates. It's a fantasy story. Yeah. I saw it more when I saw the graphic novel. I guess I did now realize it's actually a graphic novelization of the book series themselves. Some slight changes to the characters look. Yeah. I'm a big fan of mythology, man. I'm a big fan of folklore, mythology, urban legends, and I'm whole into the Irish legends and fairies and all that. I love this stuff, and I figured it'd be cool looking the franchise. So let's take a look into this. And this movie, like I said, is based on this book series. Now, I didn't get into the book series as much as I did the Harry Potter and the other ones.
Yeah,
but from what I can tell from the novelizations, it's kind of like a villainous character, almost, so to speak, with a heart, where it's kind of like the anti Harry Potter, so to speak. And he has his methods. They aren't necessarily heroic, to get the job
Very
done.
deceitful, from what I understand.
Yeah, but he's still a good kid at heart, so to speak. The movie doesn't touch upon any of that, and doesn't even get to that point. You see hints of it in the beginning.
Yeah.
But then the characterization completely changes, and it looks like, from what I've seen from like the kind of synopsis of some of the graphic novels and the books, they took a lot from like the first 2 and 3 books and try to compile it together to tell this story on a hodgepodge, and you could tell that in the movie. It's like the different tones throughout the film, and it was
it was all over the place.
Like, let's take this from this first book, take this from that book. Oh, we'll take this, and we'll just throw it together to try to make a movie.
Yeah, that's what I understand. Yeah,
and they failed. Yeah, they failed. Rob, you have been very vocal about how you feel about this movie.
Yeah,
you're the one who told me to review it, which I find funny because you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna watch it. Let's review it."
Yeah,
and I'm like, "All right, I'll get to it." I tried starting it. I'm not gonna lie. And I just fell asleep like the first few times. And then like the third time, I was like, all right, when I watch it, I got, caffeinated. I'm good. And I'm like, I lost 90 minutes of time. There.
Yeah. Well, same. Well, okay. So I've heard the word going out that this film was not very good. And then that's when I learned after the reviews here that this movie was based on a book series, which we had touched upon here. And from what you described, the character is pretty much the anti-Harry Potter. He is like the villainous character, but he is somehow still a very interesting character. And it's like he's like the anti-hero, if you will. And when I heard about that, I was like, oh, okay, so basically they're going to do a different approach. And maybe it's not as bad as they think, because Disney has their hand on this franchise. So they're going to want to kind of lighten up the tone a little bit to make this character not as what's the word I want to use, is as villainous as he is in the book. They kind of want to tone that down a little bit. And I understand, for the sake of Disney, it is what it is. But my God, they completely neutered this kid. They made it. From what I read on how the character is portrayed in the books, he is way more interesting than what you see in the film. In the film, he's practically a cardboard copy of what you get in the books, from what I understand. So when I saw the film, I was like, you got to watch this movie, because, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts, because sometimes you tend to be a little more, okay, you might find something good in a film. And I tend to be the same way too. But this is like actually the first one in quite some time where I saw it and I was like, this is a complete shit show. And you can see it from the very beginning. And the way that the film ended, clearly they were intending on a franchise, which is understandable because it's based on a book series here. And I was like, I can't find anything good about this movie at all whatsoever, and I was very hard pressed about that, because I thought maybe if I get you to watch it, because I didn't want to see it again, if I get you to watch it, you can find something interesting. I'm like, maybe you do have a point there, but even after that, you're just like, no, this fucking movie sucks, and I was like, yeah, it does, doesn't it?
I was like, dude, I don't know how you got to the first 20 minutes. I was texting, I was watching it, but I'm like, it's pretty to look at. I mean, some of the visual effects are pretty cool. And we kind of did touch about it. Kind of had like that Mission Impossible, James Bond type of kind of feel, but they just didn't do it right. They didn't. Like, it would have been great if they still kind of held on to the character. Judi Dench couldn't save this movie.
Fuck no. I don't know what she sounds. Judi Dench, and I think in the trailer you don't hear her talk at all. You definitely see her, obviously, but. When I heard that she had this cigarette lady type of voice where she sounded like she smoked 15 boxes of cigarette and then got on and says it, "I'm ready, guys," and then started the portraying this character here, I was blown away by that, because that was the one shocking factor for me, where I saw this wonderful actress who clearly took a paycheck and just thought, man, I'm going to do something different to keep myself entertained and keep myself focused on what I got to do. And I think that was one of the reasons why the voice was done the way that it was. Maybe she was going to stick with her regular voice, or maybe that's how the character is in the story. I don't know. But to me, I remember I was thinking about it, I was like, maybe she just did the voice change because, one, the script sucked, but she's getting paid a hefty sum of change there. And she figured, well, they're going to probably make me look cool, and I'm just going to change my voice up so I can keep myself focused on what I got to say, so that way I'm on point. And if that's the case, it shows, because this is one of the most debacles you'll ever see on film, because they, I heard rumblings that Disney had saw a cut of the film and they were just like, this is not going to work, because this film, I believe, was supposed to come out last year, if I'm not mistaken, and it's got postponed for a whole year, and they had plenty of time to right their wrongs. Right their wrongs, and it seems like they just cut out more stuff, and then we got this 90-minute film, which literally was only 90 minutes. I remember the last 5 minutes, I was like, when is this movie going to ever end? And thankfully it ended there. And that's the only highlight I could give the film, that it ended, and I was thankful. And then let's talk about some of these other characters here too. Josh Gad, who plays this character called Mulch. I'm not sure, since you read a bit of the series, a bit of the story from the first book here. Do you ever remember that character being the way how he portrays himself, how they portray this character in the film here? Because when I looked at that character, I was like, this is basically Hagrid, and they've got Josh Gad putting on another voice that sounds like he just smoked 15 cigarettes before he got on set and started talking with this horrible rendition of a Hagrid voice with an American accent. It didn't really appeal to me as somebody that would, it seemed like a copy of Hagrid for Harry Potter. So basically that's what it looks like to me. They're just copying Harry Potter and bringing their own version of Hagrid. Don't know if the character's like that in the series. Not sure if you remember that at all, because
from what I could take, the way I picture the character was different from the comic book. He looked a little different than he actually was in the film. I mean, in the original source material. But like he's supposed to be like a big stocky guy. He's like right. Dwarf, but bigger in mass and height. So yeah, kind of stocky build. It's like in my head when I'm reading a little bit of it. I didn't really hear that kind of gruffy voice like that. Kind of Haggerty. It's kind of more like a biker is kind of the image I had in my head.
That would be much more interesting than this knockoff Hagrid copycat here. Yeah, Colin Farrell's in the movie too, and
I was going to say that,
and he's in the film. He got a pretty good paycheck to hang around. Literally, he just hung around for a good part of the film like this. And he got paid to look worried, and maybe he looked worried because this movie's going to suck. But hey, I'm getting paid X million dollars, and I mean, there's so much. There's a lot of puns you can throw at this film here, because clearly, I'm sure, like any other film, the intention was to make a good movie. I understand that here, but from what I read of what the source material was, it's such an interesting and fascinating approach to a character. You're using a villain, so to speak, being the lead in this film. And he's doing not so great things. And from what I understand in the source material, he takes a lot of very dark turns that make you question his motives.
And what should have been is like Minions. Gru is the exact same thing. He's a villain, but he's a lovable villain because he's a good guy at heart.
Right. True.
And that's kind of where like they didn't capture that. And the kid did a good job in like the first few minutes of being kind of like that snobby, smart aleckly kind of almost Sherlock Holmes with the intelligence, and kind of like bringing up the details of little stuff and kind of like, well, this and this and this. This chair is actually a fraud due to the stitching. But, like stuff like that. I'm like, yes, that would have been more. See more of that callous nature.
Yeah.
But after like I guess mid through the movie, not even mid through, his character changes.
Yeah, they stripped him away of all that stuff, and he is one of the most boring characters in the film, quite frankly. And he's supposed to be this intelligent guy. You've never really actually seen him do that. Maybe once in the film that has to do with him trying to find his father, because Colin Farrell, like we said, is hanging in some dark room somewhere, probably in some basement where they were still trying to negotiate his contract. I'm just trying to figure out what exactly
they were trying to stuff too much into this, and then like the way they portrayed it. And I know the scene you're talking about, like you just kind of put everything together in that one room. Like it was just too convenient. It was too, regardless if it was in the source material or not. At least you took some liberties with the character at this point. You might as well take some liberties to make a little bit seem lack for a better term, more realistic of how they glue the pieces together. I wanted some more of a mystery here. And speaking of mystery, the true
Villain.
protagonist in this movie
Oh.
is not really mentioned. Is not really seen, but mentioned twice. Like the audience isn't even told who she is, except it's like Opal something. I guess if you read the books, you would know a little bit more about that. But she felt like a very early afternoon '90s villain. Like
Oh, you said protagonist. I think. Okay. I thought you said protagonist. I thought you were.
Sorry, the antagonist.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay. Okay. I was like, what? I thought she was a villain. Okay.
Yeah, the antagonist. She seemed like a very like 1990s, almost a Power Ranger villain at the end of the movie.
Well, she had that kind of like. She also sounded like she smoked 15 cigarettes as well. Why does like half the cast sound like they just smoked a carton of cigarettes and they all have the same type of gravelly voice? It was very distracting for me because the character you're talking, her Opal, was that was the character's name?
Yeah, when they you had to have the subtitles on to pick that up.
Oh, I did, and I was like, So anyway, so yeah, man. I don't have anything else that I can add on to this here because if I were to say that if there is one redeeming factor that you could really give the film, and actually now that I think about it, there is actually one development with the character, and that is from you can see on your background the fairy. I think her name is Short in the film. She does have a bit of a development with her character because there's a reason why she's out to help Artemis to help her father clear his name, who had passed away previous to the events of the film here, and in order for her to do that, she has to help find Artemis this thing. I forgot what it's called, the Oculus or whatever it was. It looks like a golden acorn, and that was like the main thing that everyone was after and everyone's trying to protect as well. Excuse me, I was burping. So I thought that was the only really redeeming thing, and they gave a development to this one character but even with that development, you still don't get enough to really connect with these characters at all. Because there's a part, and if you see that guy in the background with the bleached blonde hair, he is the bodyguard, I believe, of the Fowl family, and he dies and then comes back to life, and there was none of that connection. Like, oh my God, no, Butler's gonna be dead, and then you knew, right? The writing was on the wall. He's dying. He's gonna come right back in 10 seconds, and that's exactly what happened. So there's really nothing that we're giving away here because, quite frankly, the trailer may not really cover much about what really the plot is about. But when you see the film, you can see the writing on the wall, the direction it's going to be heading into, because they literally tell you everything. I mean, there's a lot of exposition. Josh Gad, in the trailer, you see he's like talking to the camera and he's telling you everything. That's pretty much half the film. And then when you're seeing events of what's occurring in the story, he's still narrating over. And by the way, this guy's coming over here, and it's like, shut the fuck up, man. Just let the story talk. I mean, let the story tell itself. And we talked about it earlier before we started recording here. I'm starting to get into Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I remember I told you a while ago, I was like, I'm thinking about checking out the film. And you warned me, don't watch the movie. I was like, I'm going to get into it. My son and I, we saw it. The same mistakes that Avatar: The Last Airbender has done, this film did the exact same thing too.
Yeah, agreed. And they were trying to do what they did with Wrinkle of Time, the Tron movies. Like, they were trying to capture that magic, and they didn't do it. They were trying to do too much with this film. Yeah. Granted, I think Josh Gad did a pretty decent job as a character. He made the movie somewhat fun. Most of the laughs, I think, came from him throughout the film. The little there was, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you with the story development with Short was really intriguing, so to speak. And I feel bad for Judi Dench and Colin Farrell that they could have done a better job really kind of portraying the story so the characters could have a little bit more shine. But there was so much exposition tossed in and so much like they were trying, remember this character from the book? Oh, how about this character from the book? Oh, we put them in there too. Like, there was no real
build up to that. There's no build up to it at all. For it. Yeah, and that's why, and that's the reason why I brought up the Last Airbender film, because having seen the series and I'm getting myself more familiar with the show as
at this point I think we're gonna have to do a review from your point of view.
Point of view. I'll put it like this, guys. It sucks, so don't watch it. That's our review for it. So
I meant the series, not the movie. We all
the series. Yeah, the series.
I'm just kind of late to the game.
Well, I mean, so like when I'm watching the source material here for the show, it's like you have a good, a wonderful story that you can tell that there's so much to cover. I understand that, and you can't really do that in expanding everything into a 2-hour film or 90-minute film, whatever the case may be. And then and like The Last Airbender, they tell you everything. And then when you see the development of these characters, it's just one note. It's like, oh, they're friends now. What? That's it? You know, there's nothing that comes out of it that you can connect with these people, especially when they're going through these serious moments of danger here. And even with that, like the movie was more of a spectacle than it was a actual story with character development. It was just a spectacle because clearly they're trying to make a Avengers films for kids with a bunch of fantasy characters. That's really what they're trying to do. And they have this whole team aspect that they're building at the very end. And Josh Gad escaping from prison and whatever else. And it's like it's like they did not learn with what they had really works for them. Like when you look at the Marvel films, it was obvious that they didn't intend on making a Avengers movie to make it like a bunch of superheroes to come at the end at an end of their films here to come out together at the end to fight the big guy at the like with what we saw in the Avengers. It's back in 2008. You have Iron Man. Then someone threw in a little Easter egg in there, and that started a wave of things to come. And that's where we ended up where we are now with the whole Marvel franchise. But they did it smart. They did it one step at a time, one baby step at a time, and that's exactly what they should have done with this film. But I think you mentioned that they had three books in one film. In a 90-minute film.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like 2 books, 2.5 books, but yeah,
whatever
it's different pieces. But yeah, it was a convoluted mess through and through. It's like the scene changes from one to another. The way they were telling the story. I understand they were interviewing the guy or investigating the guy, cross-examining him or making sure that he stayed in jail, but I don't know. It ended kind of flat with me. It was like, oh, they wrapped it up with a feel-good ending, and I guess I even said that in the beginning. Every story has its, good ending. But it didn't. I don't think it warrants a sequel. I think it warrants a reboot, a redone.
It's not going to warrant shit. It's not going to do any of that. If they do, I don't know how the contract negotiations are with the book series here and for this film adaptations here. I'm sure if they were to give that up, if Disney were to give it up, and they should give it up, and give it to somebody else that can do it justice to it, maybe Warner Bros. Can take that property and have better success with it with this series than what Disney had with their first attempt here. I think there's a lot they could do to make this right and to do it justice here, because at least when Warner Bros. Did Harry Potter, although I was never into the book series, I'll give them credit by keeping some of the dark elements that helped make the story interesting.
Agreed.
And I think that really helped that because they didn't strip away the darkness that came with that story. In fact, they held on to it. And in some cases, they actually added more to it with the visuals. And it worked very well for the series. I mean, clearly, they made 8 films out of it. And they've made a lot of money off that series.
Hey, we got darker as the movies went along.
And that's what I haven't seen the film.
And I think that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to recapture that and try to make gold out of a franchise that's already done well on its own, and they kind of butchered it. They did. They really dropped the ball on this. Yeah. Besides saying that, you said there's no redeeming qualities for this movie besides somewhat cool visuals.
No. There was nothing that hadn't been done before, hadn't been seen before.
True.
You can definitely. I mean, yeah, you can say that the special effects were good. They were, but there was nothing that was interesting about it that I thought, wow. The movie sucks, but you can always watch a movie that's so bad, and but there is one redeeming quality. This was amazing. Like this didn't have any of that whatsoever because it's something we've already seen before. They're cramming a bunch of different genres in terms of like of a team up film with James Bond, with Mission Impossible, with Avengers, with Harry Potter, with
Ocean's 11.
Ocean's 11. I mean, just a variety of stuff they're cramming into one film, And clearly, what I'm sure the longer version is probably a lot worse than what we have already gotten now. And they clearly took out so much out of that film that I don't even think this film was meant to be a 90-minute film. I think it was meant to be like maybe 2 hours, if that. But when they realized this is not going to work out at all, take this out, take that out, take this out, add this instead, and remove that here. And we're not going to get into this right now because it's going to take away from it. There's a lot that you can tell. There was too many hands in a cookie jar, and you end up with an empty jar at the very end of the day. And they're selling us that empty jar, and they're saying, "Look what we got, guys. We've got a beautiful painted jar over here. You're going to love it, and don't worry about what's inside because there's nothing. But don't worry, it's going to be awesome." And it didn't do anything for me. So, without really adding to anything else that I haven't already said, movie sucks balls, and I don't recommend it for anybody to watch it. It's not even.
That's our first bad review.
Yeah, it's not even worth a shot. I'll tell you that much. It's not. Don't drink and say, "Oh, it's gonna make it better." Fuck that shit. Don't even waste your time drinking water to this film. Just don't watch it. That's my honest opinion about this film. It sucked. And having watched The Last Airbender here, this movie, Last Airbender and this film have made the exact same mistakes. Where you have a wonderful source material and you fucked it up. Why? Because you wanted to make it more appealing to the masses. Stick with the source material, and if you do that, you will get the results that it deserves. Because if the material is good, you shouldn't have to change it. We talked about it briefly. The Lord of the Rings, which is a very, very, very complicated story on its own, with tons of histories of Middle Earth in the series alone, and they've done a great job in focusing on certain aspects of the story so that when you watch it, you don't have to worry so much about what of the source material, because the film will do a good job in establishing the world and giving you exposition and where necessary. And have the development of the characters and have the movie still move along the way. They've done a great job with that. And speaking of which, I'm drinking out of my Lord of the Rings cup right now. But that being said, though, that's how you do that. That's how you do stuff like that, where you have the proper people involved that know the source material and are going to be sticking with what works. And if it doesn't work for the film, don't add it to the film. In fact, do something different that will change the maybe certain motivations. But if it works for the film, do it right and make sure you do it with the right goal in mind. And they did that very well with that film. Harry Potter, clearly they worked. I know they made a lot of changes from what I understand.
Do you think it was a Disney decision, or you think it was kind of more like executive decision? Because usually Disney is pretty good at putting stories like this together. I mean,
not always. Not always. They've had an opportunity to work on some other good property that just didn't work out for them. What's an example that I can think of right off the top of my head?
Well, before we get into that, because then this could be a whole nother video we get into. Your final verdict. Final.
Don't watch it.
Don't watch it. All right. I don't even have a cup with me. I'm cup free for this review, and that says something. Because there's no point. Don't watch the movie. It's bad.
It's really bad. And it sucks because...
you know what's not bad are other videos. So do yourself a favor. If you want to watch our reviews for anything else, leave us... you know what? Before we even get to that, leave us a note in the comments. Did you watch the movie? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you a fan of the series? Can you clue us in a little bit more about the character? Yeah. What did you think of what they did with the character? Did you read the books? Let us know down in the comments below, because me and Rob have no clue, honestly. And this movie just didn't really help us want to get into the franchise. Do you still recommend us at least reading the book or the comic book? Let us know. Rob, what else can they watch from us here?
Well, as you've already mentioned here, where you can watch many other reviews that we've got coming down the pipeline here, but we've also got previous videos from other reviews that we've done as well from other film series. And we're also going to get into comic books as well, TV shows, as we mentioned here just briefly here, and food. Both Dave and I are a big fan of food here, and we're trying to come up with something here where we could put a video together for you guys to enjoy and watch here, and we're hoping that will be coming down to fruition down the line here. So be on the lookout for that. But since you're here, make sure that you subscribe to our channel here and hit that notification down there below, so that way you have more, one or more of our videos will be coming down the pipeline here. And also be sure to follow us on social media here, and you can follow NRW here on Facebook at New Release Wednesdays, and on Instagram, New Release Wednesdays, on Twitter at the NRW. And you can follow me on social media as well. I'm on Instagram at Rob_Medina0585, and on Twitter, RobMedina0585, and on Facebook, Rob the Movie Guy, simply just that. And my buddy from another night over there, where can they follow you, good sir?
Well, you can follow me here on my Twitter and my Insta at DavinIsDisaster. You could also follow me on my Facebook with my full name, Davin A. Estacado, where I post up everything regarding video games, pop culture, and more. And like Rob said, if you want more pop culture, stick around here with the NRW, because the rest of the NRW crew has everything else to lock you down when it comes to movies, video games, comic books, and more. Stick with us with movie reviews, and we usually touch topics with everything else as well. But besides that, if you want to know more, follow us here on social media. Stick around. Until next time, I think that's cheers. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. Have a good night.
Stay safe.